I finished my fellowship and I transitioned out of medicine right after fellowship. So I did all the work to get up to a certain level and then decided to go at the bottom of the totem pole again and start over.
Hello and welcome back to the Technology of Beauty, where we interview the movers and shakers in the beauty industry and the beauty business. Today we're so fortunate to have Jwala Karnik as our guest here. She is a physician and a consultant and an industry leader. Everyone knows her just as Jwala. So welcome, Jwala.
Thank you, Grant. I'm so delighted to be here.
I am so happy that you agreed to come on the show. I had to convince you to do it, and I can't wait to interview you and let everybody know your story because it's so unique. Many of our viewers are physicians, such as yourself, and I'm sure they haven't heard a story that's quite like yours, and I can't wait to share it. But before we do, I see you've brought me a gift.
I did. You know, it's Friday afternoon, and I thought, what better way to start the weekend off than with some cocktails? But since we're working a little bit today, I've said some mocktails, and I figured I can mix up a drink, we can chat, and just have fun.
Okay.
All right.
And what do you mean by mocktails for those who are watching?
So no alcohol in these.
Okay.
That's later.
Okay.
So I brought glasses and ice, and I brought some simple syrups. You know, in little side story, during coronavirus and COVID, we're all stuck at home, and I've taken up a new hobby.
What's that?
Of making cocktails.
Terrific.
And
so is this your own concoction?
Yeah, these are my own concoctions. So I've got one with infused a simple syrup with ginger, fresh ginger, and serrano pepper. And these two are with grapefruit and a little bit of vanilla. I just have two of them. Which flavor would you prefer?
I like the first one, the serrano
ginger?
And ginger. I love that.
All right, so I'm just going
to... Two of my favorite ingredients.
I'm just going to pour a little bit of this syrup in here and then top it off with some club soda. That one's for you. And then I'm going to have a little bit of the grapefruit.
Okay.
And some more.
Boy, this is going to be great. I've never had a guest bring me a gift, and especially not a beverage.
All right, and then I picked a little mint from the garden. So we did. This is actually called spanking the mint.
Spanking the
mint. It's to release the essential oils. Something I've learned now. But so you can, when you drink it, you get that fragrant aroma of the oils. Would you like a straw or no?
No, thank you.
All right. There you go.
Isn't that amazing?
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Thank you so much.
You.
Well, you're not only intelligent and beautiful, but you're also now a talented cocktail expert, or what would you call
mixologist?
Fantastic. You did spank that mint.
Yeah.
Oh, is that good?
It's good, right?
Well, while I enjoy this beverage, let's get started.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to med school?
At University of California, San Diego.
And then after med school, did you do a residency?
I did. I did a residency in internal medicine, and I got it into my head that I wanted to go to the East Coast and experience that for a little while, so I went to New York. I was at Cornell Presbyterian, New York Medical Center for my internal medicine residency.
And were you there for 3 years?
I was there for all 3 years, yes.
And then where was your next stop?
Then I decided to do a fellowship, and I did a fellowship in nephrology, which is the study of the kidneys. And I moved back to the West Coast and went to University of California, San Francisco, and did my fellowship there. And that was for 2 years.
Okay. So that's 5 years after med school.
5 years after med school, yeah.
And you're not a practicing physician now, are you?
I'm not a practicing physician anymore. I finished my fellowship and I transitioned out of medicine right after fellowship. So I did all the work to get up to a certain level and then decided to go at the bottom of the totem pole again and start over.
And where did you go then?
I joined a consulting firm called McKinsey Company in the San Francisco office. They're a business consulting firm, management consulting, global.
Did everyone hear that? She joined McKinsey. If you don't know what McKinsey is, look it up on your phone while we're interviewing her. So you joined McKinsey in San Francisco, the San Francisco office.
Yes.
And what was your role when you started there?
So I was a consultant, a junior consultant, and at the time, McKinsey was, and they still are, but they were very interested in bringing on people who had different experiences than a typical MBA. And so people who had gotten a PhD or an MD or a JD. And the idea was, let's mix them with people on teams who had an MBA, and they might bring some of their expertise and world experiences. And so I was in the healthcare practice, so all of the projects that I worked on were in pharmaceuticals or devices or healthcare services, nonprofit, all in the overall category of health.
And you advised... Who were you advising? Your clients?
Yeah, so our clients might be a hospital chain, for example, that was trying to figure out how to make their operations more efficient, getting patients in and be able to take care of people quicker, faster, better. Or it might be a pharmaceutical company who's trying to figure out how do we think about all the different molecules that we have and which one's going to be the most productive for us. Or it might be say, a device company or a pharmaceutical company that was thinking about a strategy on how do we compete against other companies, and is our technology really better or not? How do we think about it, or how do we think about pricing it competitively? And there's a whole lot of background research that you have to do. Some of it's just pure analytics, and some of it is really understanding, how do physicians think? How do you deliver healthcare? How do patients think? How is it going to fit within the world that already exists at the same time that you're trying to improve it and migrate people to new ideas and new ways of doing things?
I just thought of something. What was your undergraduate degree in?
Oh.
What did you major in?
It was mass communications.
Okay. I can see a little connection there. So there you are. You've done internal medicine. You've done nephrology. 5 years after a 4-year med school. So 9 years after graduating from college at UC San Diego.
College was Berkeley.
Berkeley. Okay. Berkeley for 4. 9 years later, you finish, and then you start McKinsey.
Yeah.
As a consultant. How long were you there?
I was there for about 4 or 5 years. At the time that I joined, I wasn't sure if it was right for me to make a switch into the business world. It was a time when physicians were really physicians. It's kind of common now that a lot of physicians will branch out and do other things, or people going into medical school will, from the start, do a joint MBA, MD, or know that they want to go into a branch of healthcare, maybe not practice medicine, but back then it wasn't really common. So when I joined McKinsey, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a good fit, if I wanted to do it. So I kept my privileges at the university and would moonlight on weekends as the attending.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the ER or as a nephrologist?
No, as a nephrologist, as the attending.
I see.
So I did that for a couple of years, and finally I came to the realization that my path forward was really going to be on the industry side, and so that's when I stopped practicing.
And I have never met a physician that did that. And that's why I think your story is so interesting. And I've worked with you for years in the aesthetics business, which we'll get to in a moment. But and I didn't realize you were a consultant at McKinsey.
Yeah.
So there you are, doing all that, and you're a doctor. And did you get your boards?
Oh yeah, I boarded in internal medicine and nephrology.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
You worked so hard. Okay, so where did you go after McKinsey?
After McKinsey, I joined a venture capital firm as an entrepreneur in residence. And the way that came about was very unexpectedly. When I was at McKinsey, some of our clients were in the aesthetic world, and I was a consultant on the projects. And I just fell in love with the space, really unexpectedly. I'd never thought about dermatology or plastic surgery or anything like that when I was in medical school. But working on it on the business side, I thought it was so interesting and gratifying to develop things that brought people immediate joy. And we can talk about philosophies later, but if you feel good, if you look good, you feel good, and it's a virtuous cycle. And I was drawn to it. And so I was privileged enough to end up speaking with, at the time, a venture capitalist who I was networking with, who's now one of my dearest friends. And she floated this idea by me about what if you were to become an entrepreneur, work with our venture firm, and try and scope out new technologies in aesthetics. And that sounded wonderful to me. And I felt like a kid in a candy store because that's what I got to do. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So you would search the aesthetics business and look for opportunities, acquisitions, or development, or both?
All of the above, whether it was a small company that maybe could be folded into another company, or technologies that we could spin out into a company on its own, all of the above. And we looked really broadly, devices and cosmetics and drugs. It was a really fun time because it was 2007, aesthetics was hot, the economy was hot.
Yep.
Until
it wasn't.
Yeah, until it wasn't. Yes, and then we'll get to what I did next.
Okay. So, what was the name of that VC?
It was Versant Ventures, and they're still around. They're still in Silicon Valley.
It's in Silicon Valley, and you were living in San Francisco at the time, or the Bay Area.
Yeah, exactly, in San Francisco.
And how long were you there?
About 2 years.
And did you work, about how many projects did you work on or acquire? Give me a feel for what that looked like.
So I was constantly scoping out new technologies, and it might be I would just literally look up new patents or go to universities and see what kind of new projects esteemed faculty were working on. Sometimes business plans and ideas would come to us because this VC had a track record and a lot of entrepreneurs would want to work with them. And so I'd look at new things, and the work that I did was evaluating technologies from a commercial standpoint. Was it something that was cool, that was needed? Were people going to use this? From a regulatory standpoint, was it something that was even going to get approved? Was there a pathway? Looking at the IP, is there a way to be able to protect it with intellectual property patents? Understanding also strategically, what was it going to take? And scientifically, mechanistically, was it going to did it work? Would it even really work? So, I had to look at, and I didn't have to, I got to look at it from every single aspect and do the beginning work, and then bring in experts along the way when I got to a certain point where I said, okay, I think it'll be good enough, let me bring in somebody else to then give me an expert opinion on whether we were going down the right pathway. We looked at a ton of stuff. We actually didn't end up forming a company because around the time that we were thinking of doing it, and it kind of bundled up a couple of things that were going to be really interesting, was when 2008 came and the economy crashed. And finding money to invest in an all-cash pay business was not so easy. No. So, but it was a great experience. Loved it.
Yeah, it sounds very exciting. Okay, so you were there for a few years.
Yep.
The 2008 crash hit.
Yeah.
And did you stay there, or did you go on to another one?
No, I then started consulting as a consultant in industry, and a lot of independently,
okay.
Yeah. A lot of the folks who I'd met along the way would call me and ask me if I could help out on a project here and there. And so I did work with a lot of the movers and shakers who are still around.
Right.
And spent a lot of time working with one company in particular, which was Solta.
Okay.
And
who were you working with there at Solta?
It was a gentleman who you've had on the show before, and your business partner is Clint. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So Clint was on our program. Clint Carnell, that is, from Solta, now from Hydrafacial and Orange Twist.
Yeah. So
he was on one of our programs. So you worked with Clint at Solta.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And you were a consultant?
I was a consultant there.
Independent consultant?
Independent.
Consulting on what type of thing?
I'll talk about the most fun thing that we did was, and why he originally brought me in, was he was developing a technology called Clear and Brilliant.
Yes, we know all about Clear and Brilliant.
Yes, it was in its early stages, and he had an idea that it could be used as a way to increase the efficacy of topicals. if you use Clear and Brilliant, then could you enhance the penetration, therefore the efficiency of various topicals? And we started working with a little company called SkinCeuticals, owned by another little company called L'Oreal. And I had the pleasure of putting together that partnership and thinking through what the clinical trial would be and what the business partnership could look like. And so the two entered into a partnership on bundling and marketing Clear and Brilliant with SkinCeuticals. So that was a lot of fun.
I bet. And from there, where'd you go?
So from there, I followed Clint when he went to go join a company called Myoscience.
I was wondering if you did. Okay.
Yeah. And
tell us all about Myoscience. That's something some people haven't heard about.
Yeah, so the idea was Myoscience had a technology, cryotherapy, freezing. And the hope was that it might be an alternative to a toxin. And so toxins, as you know, as many of your viewers know, work by interrupting the signal between a nerve and a muscle so that the muscle no longer has a signal to contract. The idea was, well, what if you went further upstream and interrupted the signal that tells the nerve to send signals? And that way you could prevent muscular contraction by stopping the nerve. And the hope was that maybe even you could tune the longevity depending on where in the physical pathway of the nerve you block that signal. And it would also appeal to a group of people who didn't want to introduce any chemicals, any drugs into their body, because all you were doing was freezing the nerve. So we tried that, and it turned out that it was probably better suited towards interrupting the signals for pain than for muscular contraction. And so now the company is focused on pain as the indication, which is more appropriate for.
So it's cryotherapy to knock out the pain, the nerves that monitor or
send pain
signals. Okay. Okay. So you were advising Clint, and but you're an independent person.
No, I was working. I was a employee for Myoscience.
Okay.
And then about the time the company had changed over to pain, then I left and went to a different company.
Which one?
So that one was Suneva, and they had a filler, a long-lasting filler that they were trying to reposition in the market as a treatment for scars, acne scars.
Okay.
So I joined then to develop this for the brand new indication of acne scars, and it was a patient population that had been kind of overlooked. Scars aren't sexy, but there's a lot of unmet need and a lot of emotional impact.
Oh, yes.
That it has on people with scars. So, and we were successful. We got that approved, and it still exists today for that indication.
What was your role there? Were you were you injecting people with this?
No, I was the chief medical officer, so I was running the trial on point with the FDA and getting that approved, and then working with the marketing colleagues and helping think through the positioning and the marketing.
Okay. And how long were you there at Suneva?
Oh, I was there for about 4 years.
Wow.
I think so, yeah.
And where was that located?
That was in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and we also had a cosmetic line, a line of growth factors that had been developed by the woman who originally developed Skin Medica's growth factors. So we also did cosmetics, and then we had a drug, a topical tretinoin that was made for preventing wrinkles. It was actually approved for wrinkles.
What's the name of that one?
That was Rafissa.
Okay.
So it was. That was challenging. We had a drug, a device, and a cosmetic all under one roof, and we were a tiny little company. So all three are really, usually the DNA in all three of those companies is really different, but we mixed it all together. So that was a fun time, challenging. And then from there, I went back. We got it approved. It's on its way. The company still exists, and I moved on after that.
Okay. And where'd you move on to next?
So I'm a consultant now. I'm working independently again.
Okay. So you work for a number of companies?
I work for a couple of companies, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what's that look like?
It's a lot of fun. I get to pick and choose, but our old friend Clint called me up and said he'd moved on to a new company, and he had this idea again, of could he use the Hydrafacial machine to deliver skincare produced by other companies. And the idea was, Hydrafacial is great at performing and doing Hydrafacial treatments. They aren't necessarily the best formulators in the world, and why not take advantage of other companies that make great formulations, and could they make serums and topicals that could run through the Hydrafacial machine? And because we had done that combination of device topicals back at Solta with SkinCeuticals, he asked me if I would come back and help arrange some of those partnerships. So I started helping there.
So you worked with other skincare companies.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to work with Alastin and Diane Goostrey?
Yes, they were one of the first that we did. And so Alastin makes a booster that runs through the Hydrafacial. And so we've had a chance to work together again. And with my work at Hydrafacial, I've helped now with some product development, designing some of the serums and boosters that go through, because Hydrafacial makes their own, some of them. But it's been a really fun time in working with a lot of the industry leaders again. Name a skincare company. We probably have discussed and either have a product already developed or it's in development.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned you have a few companies you're consulting with right now, and you just now mentioned Hydrafacial. Who else are you working with?
So I'm working with another company that you know pretty well, called Dive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
We had the CEO Dive on this program.
Did you? Mm-hmm. Ryan came. Yeah, yes. Yeah. So in what a small world it is, Ryan and I worked together at McKinsey, and for a couple of the projects, he was my boss.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Ryan's the CEO of Dive, and you saw him a few weeks ago. And he is also a physician by training.
Yeah.
So he was also at McKinsey.
Yeah.
So I know two of you who went to med school and then switched.
Yes.
An interesting change. Okay, so you're working
Although I
with
like to point out, especially to Ryan, that he actually didn't do a residency or a fellowship.
Didn't?
No, he didn't.
Oh, he's kind of a wannabe?
Yeah.
He just did 4 years of med school?
Yeah.
That's not nearly the same.
Yeah, I tease him about that. He's actually probably smarter because he figured out earlier what he wanted to do.
I'm going to tease him about that also.
So Ryan founded Dive. He founded it on a technology of delivering drugs through the skin. Transdermal delivery isn't new, but there have been challenges with it on having enough efficiency, enough efficacy, avoiding side effects, and their technology has the ability to really penetrate and avoid a lot of the side effects and challenges of some of the past transdermal technologies. So they're in clinical development now, and so I'm helping them with that, and we'll see. So it's pretty exciting.
Are you helping him or them with the studies?
Yes.
Or with the marketing? The studies.
Studies.
I know he's working on a gout study, right?
Yes, so I'm helping with that study.
And that's with sodium bicarbonate.
Yeah.
And he also mentioned some other active ingredients or molecules that he's working with. Are you working with any of those? And clinical studies or FDA studies with animals?
No, that's the there's some preclinical studies ongoing, and I'm not involved in those. Right now, I'm just helping them with the gout study, but there may be some other things coming down, and I probably shouldn't say what they are. Let him say it, but that could be pretty exciting.
Yes, very exciting. The idea that we could eliminate needles and we could actually become therapeutic through topical applications. That's very exciting. Okay, so you're working with Hydrafacial and Clint. You're working with Dive and Ryan.
Yeah.
Are you consulting with anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple of clients who I do one-offs on. Everything from thinking through regulatory strategy to thinking of development strategy. Another company that I'm just starting to speak to, and I won't say who they are until it's official, but they believe they might have found some ways to repurpose some old molecules and use them for some unmet needs within dermatology. So they're smart people who know nothing about dermatology and whether or not this would be useful at all. So I'm helping, I hope to maybe help them think through that, if there's a pathway there forward for them. And if there is, The joy that I have is being able to connect really smart people in ways and doing things in a way they might not have thought of or don't have the expertise, and I can help them with that.
That's fantastic. Have you ever thought about running a company and being a CEO?
No. I don't want to do that.
Okay. You prefer being a consultant? How'd you like being a chief medical officer? Would you do that again?
It was a lot of fun. I would, but it's I think when you're the CEO or the chief medical officer, there's so much that you have to deal with that is beyond just the science and the clinical parts of it. My hat's off to the CEOs who have to deal with so many more issues. It's kind of fun for me to just think through the pure intellectual issues that I get to do right now. So I'm happy doing it. If the right opportunity came around, I might think of doing something a little bit different, take on more responsibilities again.
Would you ever leave the aesthetic space?
Yeah, there's, I love aesthetics, but what I love more is innovation and meeting unmet needs and finding ways to do it. And there's a lot of ways that you can do it. I mean, goodness, we didn't talk about one of the companies I was working with last year was in medical dermatology. They had found a really interesting way to treat potentially psoriasis.
Okay.
It was by reducing stress through an electrical stimulation device. Totally different.
To the brain?
To the nerves, to the central, to the peripheral nervous system, and then have a feedback effect to the central nervous system.
Okay.
So it was wild and wacky. Right? I mean, everybody knows that stress probably has a component in an autoimmune skin disorder, but we don't exactly know the exact link, right?
Right.
And so we had a hypothesis, designed a scientific trial, had the top people in the psoriasis world do the studies and do the trials, over 100 patients, and it didn't work.
It didn't?
It didn't work, no.
Oh, darn.
It's okay, but that's why you have your hypothesis driven, and you do a really good scientific, robust study to find out the answer.
Okay.
Had it worked, that would have been amazing.
Yes.
It didn't, but that's all right. Now we know. So, but yes, that was outside of aesthetics too. But yeah, so I would do things outside of aesthetics for sure.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, COVID has affected all of us. And I'd like to hear from you, how COVID has affected you or the companies you work with.
Yeah, it's definitely affected me. In some ways, it's been easy. As a consultant, a lot of what I do is on my own in front of a computer, laptop anyways.
Okay.
So that part of it was easy. However, I don't have the opportunity to go and visit my clients as much anymore, obviously. And clients' business was impacted, especially in the service industry and aesthetics, as offices were closed, business declined. The investment dollars are a little more scarce, and so people's view of the horizon has to be a little bit narrower now, maybe not thinking so broadly about investing in new things and just trying to optimize what they have. So my focus sometimes has been a little bit shifted as well. Personally, I've taken up some new hobbies.
Yes.
So it's...
Speaking of which, can I have another one?
Yeah, you want the
I'll
ginger?
try the grapefruit.
You want to try the grapefruit?
Yeah, because I feel like I should, but I'll tell you that Serrano chili and ginger, that is really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Get the recipe when we're done here.
Yeah, I will. You know what? I forgot to bring you the salt. That's the other thing. People don't know that I'd made this and made up my own salt for it in a margarita, and I didn't have a chance to bring that for you today.
Well, it's absolutely delicious what you did do. You say you make your own salt?
I'm going to let you open that.
Did you say you make your own salt?
Yeah. So I've, so I made a salt to go with it. I mixed a little bit of, remember that day, some garam masala, which is an Indian spice, and some kosher salt, and had a little interesting little twist on that drink.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a little about COVID. You've been in the aesthetics business pretty much your whole career after being a nephrologist.
Yeah.
And a consultant. Putting on the crystal ball or looking into your crystal ball, what do you see in the future for technologies, and especially technologies within the aesthetics field, the technologies of beauty? What are we going to be looking at in a year, 5 years, 10 years?
So, since I think always good skin is in, and the ancient rituals of skincare will never leave us. Mm-hmm. And what's exciting, especially in my world, are some of the newer ingredients and new ways to take care of your skin, especially as we are focusing on diversity and inclusion. And there's been an explosion of skincare for men, for different skin types, for different skin of color. Everybody's focusing more on how skin can look better. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the things I think are really interesting is bespoke skincare. And what I mean by that is personalizing ingredients for you, Grant Stevens, in particular, and using the technologies that we have to analyze today. What's your level of hydration? What's the level of oil? What's the level of pollution? And maybe in the future, some new ways to analyze your skin that we can mass produce to analyze DNA, gene expression, protein expression, hormones, and maybe the microbiome, which is another area that's up and coming.
Yes.
Use all of that to then bring in some data learning, machine learning, AI, and different algorithms to then come up with what do you specifically need, and mix that up in a jar, in a vial, and give that to you meant specifically for your skin. It exists in certain places out there. It's still a little special. It's not available always to the masses, but I think it'll become more commonplace.
So customized skincare based on my unique biology.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Are you working with a company that's doing that right now that you can tell us about?
I'm not at the moment. I've looked at some of them. We are, I will just say in very veiled references, we're taking moves toward that. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, that's very exciting.
I think it'll be really exciting. Another area is the microbiome. We've heard a lot about the microbiome and how there's a population of bacteria that exists in certain concentrations that's healthy. And when it gets disrupted, it leads to disease. And that is something that we are learning about internally in our guts that leads to all kinds of medical diseases. But there's also a population on our skin. And when it gets out of balance, does it lead to acne, rosacea, et cetera? And I think we're still in the beginning stages of understanding that. And how do you develop skincare that really helps balance and regulate? And I think we're just going to learn more over time. And while it has entered into mass skincare, I think we'll see more of it and more specialized formulations over time.
So we have good bacteria and bad bacteria.
Good bacteria and bad bacteria, and bacteria that are all fine, but when they are in different concentrations than they're supposed to be, it leads to a situation in which you can have secondary effects that you didn't want.
Okay, well, that's exciting. There's rumors, much more than rumors. As you know, there's a product out there called Daxi. That's owned by a company called Residency. And the FDA is going to be ruling on just how long the indication is, and it's going to be competing with Botox. And I've been asking a number of our guests just what effect a longer duration will have on sales of that product versus Botox and so forth. Do you think duration will figure into sales? And do you think if so, which direction you think it'll go? Any thoughts about Daxi?
Yeah.
Indications?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Okay. I think sales will go up for everybody.
For everybody?
For everybody.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The whole aesthetic business.
The whole category.
That would be welcome news for everyone.
There's been new news about toxins as some more have come on the market. But this is new news. Not to put anyone down, this is really new news. Increased duration. It's not just trying to make a different position in the market. It's truly a different clinical profile. And there will be people out there, consumers, who will be very happy with that. It's really annoying as a person who consumes toxins myself, it's annoying when I look in the mirror and see that it's wearing off like, again, already? It will be really nice to have something of longer duration. That is not for everybody. Some people want it to be a little shorter lasting. They're a little scared about the effects, or they don't mind coming in. They're really comfortable with what they've started. Either way, there'll be a lot more people having conversations, and I think it will draw interest and renewed conversations from people who are maybe a little bit on the fence. It just increases overall awareness, and I think that's good for the industry as a whole.
Well, I would agree with you. I'd rather have needles in my face twice a year than 4 times a year.
Why not?
That's right. Okay, well, I want to thank you once again for joining us.
My pleasure.
We sure appreciate it. You have a very unique career. I've never met anybody who's done what you've done in the beauty business here.
I couldn't have designed it. It just happened.
No, impossible. And you're a legend here in the aesthetics business.
No.
Jwala, when I said to the guests, the last few guests I was interviewing Jwala, people knew exactly what I was talking about. It's like saying Cher or any of the one-named movie stars. So, Jwala, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And we look forward to seeing all of you again soon. The Technology of Beauty plays every other Tuesday, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care.